Hello everybody. Last time we heard about how God created his people and how he gave them a special world to live in and to enjoy his love. Today we're going to find out about what happened next. Before that, I wonder if you've ever got into trouble and needed rescuing. Or maybe you've done something really bad, a terrible mistake. I wonder how your parents reacted, or maybe it was at school. I wonder how your teachers reacted. I once got into trouble and needed rescued. I was on holiday with my family in Spain, and my dad had a little boat, and he thought it would be a good idea to teach me how to sail. So I got onto the boat, and Dad pushed the boat off from the shore into the sea. But unfortunately, the wind caught the boat, and I was sailed out to sea really quickly, and Dad didn't have time to get on the boat. Now, all boats operate with a rudder which helps steer the boat, and unfortunately the rudder wasn't down, so every time I pulled on the ropes to operate the sails, the rudder, nothing happened. The boat didn't move. Now I was panicking because the far side from Spain is Africa, and I thought I'm going to be stuck and end up in Africa. Now, thankfully, my dad ran along the beach as quickly as he could, shouting for help, and there was a local fisherman who didn't speak any English, but he realised what had happened, and he got into his motorboat and was able to, they were both able to come and rescue me before I ended up in Africa. I thought maybe my dad was trying to get rid of me, but I was never so relieved whenever I saw Dad and this fisherman come to rescue me. Well, today we're going to learn about something, a rescue, and I wonder, by looking at this little creation of Lego which Josh made, I wonder could you guess what it's going to be about today? So there's a couple of people, and well, there's a snake here, and there's trees with fruit. I'm sure you've guessed, it's about Adam and Eve. And Adam and Eve were in the garden, and today we're going to learn about how Adam and Eve made the biggest mistake of all and how God responded. So you can see I've moved into our garden now to tell us our story today, which is from the Jesus Storybook Bible. We love this Bible, and the story is called The Terrible Lie. Adam and Eve lived happily together in their beautiful new home, and everything was perfect for a while, until the day when everything went wrong. God had a horrible enemy. His name was Satan. Satan had once been the most beautiful angel, but he didn't want to be just an angel. He wanted to be God. He grew proud and evil and full of hate, and God had to send him out of heaven. Satan was seething with anger and looking for a way to hurt God. He wanted to stop God's plan, stop this love story right there. So he disguised himself as a snake and waited in the garden. Now, God had given Adam and Eve only one rule. Don't eat the fruit on that tree, God told them, because if you do, you'll think you know everything. You'll stop trusting me, and then death and sadness and tears will come. You see, God knew if they ate the fruit, they would think they didn't need him, and they would try to make themselves happy without him. But God knew there was no such thing as happiness without him, and life wouldn't be life at all. As soon as the snake saw his chance, he slithered silently up to Eve. "Does God really love you?" the serpent whispered. "If he does, why won't he let you eat the nice, juicy, delicious fruit? Poor you, perhaps God doesn't want you to be happy." The snake's words hissed into her ears and sunk down deep into her heart like poison. Does God love me? Eve wondered. Suddenly she didn't know anymore. "Just trust me," the serpent whispered. "You don't need God. One small taste, that's all, and you'll be happier than you could ever dream." Eve picked the fruit and ate some, and Adam ate some too. And a terrible lie came into the world. It would never leave. It would live on in every human heart, whispering to every one of God's children, "God doesn't love me." And it wasn't a dream, it was a nightmare. A dove flew from Adam's hand, a deer darted in a thicket. It was as if they were all frightened by something. A chill was in the air. Something strange was happening. They had always been naked, but now they felt naked and wrong, and they didn't want anyone to see them. So they hid. Later that evening, as God was taking his walk, he called to them, "Children." Usually Adam and Eve loved to hear God's voice and would run to him, but this time they ran away from him and hid in the shadows. "Where are you?" God called. "Hiding," Adam said. "We're afraid of you." "Did you eat the fruit I told you not to eat?" God asked them. Adam said, "Eve made me do it." "What have you done?" God said. Eve said, "The serpent made me do it." And terrible pain came into God's heart. His children hadn't just broken the one rule, they had broken God's heart. They had broken their wonderful relationship with him, and now he knew everything else would break. God's creation would start to unravel and come undone and go wrong. From now on, everything would die, even though it was all supposed to last forever. You see, sin had come into God's perfect world, and it would never leave. God's children would always be running away from him and hiding in the dark. Their hearts would break now and never work properly again. God couldn't let his children live forever, not in such pain without him. There was only one way to protect them. "You will have to leave the garden now," God told his children, his eyes filling with tears. "This is no longer your true home. It's not the place for you anymore." But before they left the garden, God made clothes for his children to cover them. He gently clothed them, and then he sent them away on a long, long journey out of the garden, out of their home. Well, in another story, it would be all over, and that would have been the end. But not in this story. God loved his children too much to let the story end there. Even though he knew he would suffer, God had a plan, a magnificent dream. One day he would get his children back. One day he would make their world their perfect home again. And one day he would wipe away every tear from their eyes. You see, no matter what, in spite of everything, God would love his children with a never stopping, never giving up, unbreaking, always and forever love. And though they would forget him and run from him, deep in their hearts, God's children would miss him always and long for him. Lost children yearning for their home. Before they left the garden, God made a promise to Adam and Eve. "It will not always be so. I will come to rescue you, and when I do, I'm going to do battle against the snake. I'll get rid of the sin and the dark and the sadness you let in here. I'm coming back for you." And he would. One day, God himself would come. We've learnt today that sin is serious. Sin is anything you say or think or do that doesn't please God. Sin destroyed the perfect world and separated people from God. But God's response was to send a rescuer. In our later stories and times together, we're going to learn that this rescuer was Jesus. We learn in Romans chapter 5, verse 8, which is our memory verse for this week, that the rescuer was Jesus. This verse says, "But God demonstrates his own love for us in this, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." Isn't that amazing? This teaches us that God cares for us even when we sin. He's been doing it since Adam and Eve, and he's doing it ever since.